Every night, she offered her heart to the lonely rancher until an incredible truth was revealed. In Dusty Creek, every evening felt like the same old script. Sarah smiled gently as she poured coffee into chipped mugs, the steam curling up like whispers of the stories around her. She wore her apron like a second skin, a shield against the world's burdens. The diner buzzed with laughter and warmth, children playing at the counter while their parents exchanged juicy gossip just loud enough for her to catch snippets of their lives. Yet, for Sarah, each mirthful laughter felt like a reminder of her solitude. After she closed up the diner, the laughter grew faint, leaving a haunting silence as she returned to an empty house that echoed with memories of her younger siblings' laughter, now muted by their shared grief. But under the cloak of night, when the stars blinked overhead, she found her solace. Sitting on the worn porch steps, Jake would often join her. The rancher was an enigma wrapped in the kind of charm that cut through the dust and shadows of their small town. Every word he spoke seemed to pull her closer, unveiling layers of his heart hidden behind rugged charm and a tragic family history. She listened as he shared tales of dreams lost to the winds of fate, and in those moments, she dared to dream too. They shared not just stories but fragments of their souls, a connection that felt electric yet precarious, as if tethered loosely on the edge of a great divide. As twilight draped around them, Sarah soaked in Jake's comforting presence, but the reality of their lives loomed. Her minimum wage felt like quicksand, pulling her under while Jake maneuvered through life on the back of riches and a sprawling ranch. Their contrasting worlds tugged at her heart, raising the unspoken question, could love truly bridge such an expanse? Then came the day when everything shifted. The truth emerged, a truth that spun her world and sent shivers down her spine. Jake was not just the distant rancher. He was the estranged son of a beloved war veteran, a man marred by unspoken turmoil, who had shaped Dusty Creek's very soul. What should have drawn them closer seemed to tighten the knot between them. With this revelation, her feelings tangled with confusion and fear. Would Dusty Creek ever accept him as one of their own? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just then, the sky darkened, and the winds began to howl, a harsh reality crashing down. A storm approached Dusty Creek like an old enemy, shaking the very foundations of the town. Sarah felt her heart race, a blend of terror and determination filling her. As the rain began to pour in torrents, neighbors gathered in the diner, seeking refuge and security. In that moment of crisis, Sarah caught Jake's eye, and something shifted. They were no longer just a waitress and a rancher, but two souls entwined in survival. As they both worked alongside the townsfolk to barricade doors and stockpile supplies, a deeper connection began to bloom. In the midst of the chaos, they uncovered strengths they never knew they possessed. The storm raged outside, but inside, a flicker of hope sparked between them. Could this storm cleanse away the remnants of their pasts? The weight of the truth hung between them, the unexamined bias and societal expectations threatening to crash down just like the tempest outside. And as the first cracks of thunder rolled through the air, Sarah realized she had to face more than the storm. She had to confront her feelings for Jake and the future they might build, together or apart. The storm howled like a wild animal, clawing at the streetlights and rattling the windows of the diner. Sarah moved around the cafe, keeping the coffee flowing and passing out slices of pie, anything to ensure that those who sought shelter felt at ease. Her heart raced not just from the looming storm, but also from the energy pulsating in the air, an unacknowledged connection woven tighter with every shared glance from Jake. He was right there, standing at the entrance, his silhouette framed by the chaos of flashlights and heavy rain. His face, usually rugged and charming, now bore lines of determination, a fierce resolve shining in his eyes. Every time he looked at her, Sarah felt a burgeoning confidence, a growing belief that together they could weather anything, including the storms of the past. Then, a clap of thunder echoed overhead, a loud reminder of the tumultuous truths they faced. The diners huddled close, their voices raised in anxious conversations, but Sarah's attention remained fixed on Jake. He moved through the huddled townsfolk, easily slipping back and forth from panic to assurance in the way only a natural leader could. "Sarah," Jake's voice broke through the din. "We need more towels for the windows. Can you help me?" She nodded, her heartbeat quickening as she followed him into the back room. As the rain lashed against the windows, they rummaged through supplies, their fingers brushing casually against each other, sending waves of heat radiating through her. "Do you think we'll be all right?" Sarah asked, pushing her damp hair behind her ear, seeking comfort in his presence. Jake paused, turning fully to face her. "We've got each other, don't we? That's what counts." His words resonated deep within her. It shifted something, a breath of hope amidst chaos. But anxiety still gnawed at her soul. Would each other really be enough? She could feel the weight of Dusty Creek's expectations like an anchor, dragging her back into her doubts. Would they truly accept Jake, the war veteran's son? Would they understand his pain, or would they only see his past and judge him for it? Just then, a gust of wind hurled open the door, causing it to slam against the wall. Gasps filled the room as rainwater spilled through the entrance. The sudden rush of chaos pulled them back to reality, and Sarah instinctively sprang into action. They grabbed buckets and towels, working together to staunch the onslaught pouring into the diner. In the frenzy, she caught Jake's eye again. But this time, something deeper lurked in his gaze. A vulnerability surfaced, an unspoken plea to understand him, to accept everything he was harboring inside. As they finished clearing the last of the water, panting and soaked, the power flickered, and a pale glow went out, engulfing the diner in darkness. A murmur of concern traveled through the crowd. Sarah squeezed Jake's hand, instinctively sensing that it was up to them to maintain the pulse of hope. With his free hand, he reached for her cheek, brushing his thumb along her skin. "This storm will eventually pass, Sarah. Like everything else, it's only temporary." His words echoed within her, resonating deeper than the chaos outside. But just as their moment of connection solidified, a chilling thought pierced her heart. What if the resurgence of the storm had meant something else? She craved to bridge the divide, to fight against the town's scorn that could very well follow Jake. But would she find the courage to embrace both him and her own truth? As the wind howled louder outside, the question hung thick in the air: would she choose love, or would fear lead her away from everything she ever wanted? And in that heavy silence, Sarah understood. The real tempest was only just beginning. The wind continued to howl, but inside the diner, muffled voices and the smell of fresh coffee created a small sanctuary. The room had turned into a stormy refuge where laughter mixed curiously with anxiety. Sarah could feel the weight of the moment pressing against her shoulders, but the heat from Jake's hand kept her grounded. The lights flickered again, casting shadows that danced across the walls, and Sarah caught a glimpse of the fear that lay beneath the strong demeanor of the people around her. She noticed Mrs. Thompson clutching her grandson, trying to shield him from the storm outside, her eyes darting nervously toward the darkened windows. Sarah turned to Jake, trying to gauge his feelings as the tension in the air thickened. "We've got to reassure everyone," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "They need hope right now." He nodded, determination etched in his features. "I'll help you. Let us remind them they're not alone." They moved together, finding their rhythm as they spoke to the frightened patrons. Sarah's laughter rang out as she shared a silly story about a pie-baking mishap, and soon others joined in, sharing chuckles and light-hearted tales to distract from the storm's ferocity. But beneath the laughter, Sarah's heart felt heavy with unspoken words. She could see the impact Jake had on the crowd. He was a pillar of strength. Yet, with every comforting reassurance, her mind wandered back to her own doubts. What would her father think? What would the town say if they truly understood her feelings for Jake? A sudden crash of thunder shook the foundation, sending everyone into a silence more profound than the storm itself. Sarah felt Jake's gaze on her, his eyes searching hers for understanding. In that moment, she knew they had to confront the truths that lingered in the shadows. "Jake," she began softly, drawing him slightly away from the crowd. "What happens when the storm subsides? What if Dusty Creek doesn't accept us? Then we build a new life somewhere else," he replied, his tone firm but laced with vulnerability. I've faced worse things than a small town's judgment. Her stomach nodded at the thought. But what if I can't let go of everything I've known? Let us not think about what we might lose. Think about what we could gain. His words held a truth that slammed into her heart like the thunder outside. He was right. Love often came with its battles. But could they fight this one together? Just then, the power returned in a surge of light, illuminating the faces filled with relief. The quiet murmurs of joy filled the diner, and life pulsed back into the crowd. But Sarah's world had shifted slightly. Jake seized the moment, taking her hands and speaking fiercely. Your heart is worth it, Sarah. I'm not just a war veteran's son. I'm also a man ready to face the world with you. You can embrace both your story and mine. Her pulse quickened at his admission. Holding his gaze, Sarah felt the storm raging within her begin to calm. Maybe this was the moment she needed to embrace their connection fully, despite the chaos looming outside. But before she could respond, a shriek pierced through the air, followed by a loud crash from outside. The storm surged anew, and a primal fear washed over the diner. What was that? Someone whispered, panic setting in. Stay calm, Jake called out, his voice strong. But internally, Sarah could feel her heart pounding with uncertainty. Was this the new battle she had to face? As she exchanged a worried glance with Jake, dread curled within her. The true storm was more than just weather. It was the fear of the unknown that awaited them. In that fraught moment, Sarah felt the pull of destiny looming over them. Would they move forward together, or would fear grip her heart tighter than any storm ever could? The diner fell into an uneasy silence. The storm howled fiercely outside, but it was the shriek that rang out over the wind that had sent a shiver down everyone's spine. Sarah's heart raced as she exchanged anxious glances with the patrons. She could see panic reflecting in their eyes. The diner was supposed to be a safe haven, but now it felt more like a trap with no escape. What was that? Someone asked again, their voice trembling. Jake stepped forward, his protective instinct kicking in. Everyone, stay calm. I'll check. He squeezed Sarah's hand once more as he moved toward the door. Stay here. Jake, wait. She called after him, but he was already striding out into the tempest. The door swung shut behind him, and Sarah felt an icy chill wash over her. The laughter they'd shared just moments ago felt worlds away. As she stood in the warm light of the diner, the cold realization swept over her. She was terrified, not just of the storm, but of what lay beyond of their future and the growing connection she couldn't ignore. An uneasy murmur started to weave through the crowd. Mrs. Thompson gripped her grandson tighter, eyes fixated on the door. Do you think he'll be okay? She asked softly, trying to keep her voice steady. He's strong, Sarah replied, though she wasn't quite sure if she believed it. It was one thing to have confidence in Jake when he was right beside her, but the uncertainty of his sudden absence felt like a brick on her chest. Several moments passed, stretching into what felt like an eternity. The storm raged, battering the diner as if trying to break through. Every crack of thunder elicited flinches. Then, suddenly, they heard a loud crash, this one closer, more immediate. Sarah pressed her palms together, heart racing, waiting for the sight of Jake to return. Finally, the door burst open, and the wind barreled in behind him. Jake stood, breathless, drenched from head to toe, his eyes wide with urgency. It's a tree. It fell on the road. We can't leave, at least not until they clear it. Gasps echoed through the diner, panic blooming in the small space. Sarah watched as people exchanged worried looks, contemplating the limit of their sanctuary. The very storm that seemed to bind them together was also threatening their escape. We'll have to wait it out, Jake continued, his voice firm. They've got the trucks out there, but it could be hours. We'll need to come up with a plan. Plan? Sarah's mind spun. They were trapped, stuck in this diner with their uncertainty and fears. The moment they left, they would face the truth of their situation. As she felt despair creeping in, Jake turned back to her, linking their eyes again. We can make this work, he said softly, as if reading her thoughts. We just need to stick together. She wanted to believe him, and yet the weight of her worries pressed down harder. What would the town say? Would they ever stop judging her for being with him? Here, Jake pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Let us keep everyone focused. How about we share stories people love, a good distraction? The idea struck a chord. It reminded her of when she told that silly pie story. You're right. Let us make a list of everyone's favorite memories, she said, gathering pieces of hope in her heart. As people started to share their tales, a quiet laughter began to grow. Sarah felt warmth creep back into the room, and the storm outside, though fierce, felt less daunting at least for a moment. Just then, a loud thud rang out from outside. The diner felt like it was holding its breath. The laughter faded, leaving a thick tension in the air. What now? Someone whimpered, brows knitted tight with apprehension. Jake clenched Sarah's hand tighter. They had to face whatever was out there, together. As the winds surged again, Sarah realized this storm was far more than just weather. It was a call to true courage and acceptance of who they were. What awaited them when this night finally ended? The moments stretched out in front of her, brimming with worry and possibility, and as she turned her eyes back to Jake, she wondered what revelations lurked on the other side of the storm. She had to find the strength hidden beneath her fears, because life beyond this diner was waiting to unfold. Little did she know that the greatest revelation of all was about to arrive. The tension in the diner was palpable, the unpredictable storm outside echoing the uncertainty within. Sarah clenched Jake's hand, her pulse quickening. The other patrons were looking around, eyes darting towards the windows, waiting for whatever it was outside to make itself known. "Did you hear that?" someone whispered, breaking the heavy silence. Jake turned his gaze toward the door, his jaw tense, a protector in his own right. "I'll check again," he said, but this time, Sarah shook her head, panic knitting its way into her heart. "Let me come with you." The thought of leading him out into the storm filled her with dread, yet the idea of being left alone felt worse. Jake hesitated, then nodded, understanding her silent plea. As they stepped outside, the wind screamed like a banshee, tossing rain in sheets. Visibility was nearly non-existent, but they trudged forward, hearts thrumming in anxious rhythm. The mighty tree rested against the diner's side, its trunk splitting awkwardly over the road. It looked heavy, ominous. Closer to the edge, Sarah spotted something unusual, a dark shape beneath the tree. A chill went down her spine as the pulse of fear surged again. "Jake?" she whispered, her voice steadier than she felt. "What if stay here?" His tone brooked no argument, and he made his way closer to the fallen tree, moving cautiously. She felt a jolt of fear, wanting to scream for him to come back, but she was rooted to the spot. The wind howled, but within that chaos was another sound, a low, muffled cry. Her heart leapt into her throat as she realized it wasn't just the storm. "Jake!" she yelled, panic bursting forth. Jake spun around, his face a mask of concern. "What is it?" "Over there. There's someone trapped." Tension replaced uncertainty as he dashed to the dark shape she noticed. Sarah hurried after him, breath fast and shallow, her mind racing with dreadful possibilities. As they neared, they found a young man, soaked and pale, struggling to breathe beneath the heavy branches. Sarah's stomach curled into knots, a stranger in need, caught in the ferocity of nature. "Help!" the man gasped, desperation etched in his face. Jake immediately dropped to his knees and started moving branches. Sarah joined him, but the weight was shocking. Each piece felt heavier than it should be, the wind whipping around them as if warning them away. "We have to get him out," she urged, pulling with all her strength. The minutes stretched long. No one knew they were out here, and the storm seemed to grow wilder, furious against their efforts. Their breaths came in ragged gasps as they worked, determination overpowering their fear. They dug and heaved, each movement turning urgency into raw desperation. Finally, with a crack, they freed the young man, and Jake scrambled back to support him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "Thank you," the stranger gasped between heavy breaths. "I thought I was going to die. Help." Sarah felt relief wash over her, but as she looked back at the diner, an unsettling thought twisted through her mind. Who was this man? Why was he out here in these terrible conditions? Suddenly, a distant rumble drew her attention, and then another surge of wind whipped past her like a warning. Jake caught her gaze and saw the worry etched on her face. "We should get him inside. Quickly," he said, urgency rising again. With effort, they pulled the man to his feet, his body weak and unsteady. Each step back toward the diner felt heavier than the last, the storm bearing down harder as if trying to force them against the ground. As they stepped inside, Gasps met them. Everyone had gathered near the door, concern replacing the previous lightness. Their eyes widened as they took in the drenched stranger, and whispers filled the air. Jake turned to Sarah, eyes reflecting a mix of determination and fear. We need to help him, but we can't let the storm take over. The atmosphere crackled with uncertainty, each face in the diner filled with unspoken questions. Sarah felt that weight again. Who was this man really, and what would he bring with him? Just as they lowered him onto one of the diner's booths, the wind outside howled, and a loud crash echoed through the diner, sending echoes of fear through the crowd. As they turned to the noise, Sarah's heart raced. What else was about to be revealed? The true storm was only just beginning. As the storm raged outside, the diner filled with a restless energy. Everyone's eyes were glued to the drenched stranger who sat wobbling on the edge of the booth. The vibrant neon lights flickered intermittently, a haunting echo of their growing dread. Whispers bounced around the small space, questions hanging thick in the air. Who is he? Someone asked, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, but we need to get him dry, Sarah said, glancing at Jake. He nodded, his jaw set in determination. They knew the urgency, but fear clung to them like the damp clothes on the stranger. Okay, Jake called to the gathered patrons, we're going to help him. But we need towels and blankets. Now, a few people jumped into action, rushing to fetch whatever they could find. Sarah moved closer to the man, taking a deep breath to steady herself. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue. She felt an ache in her chest, like a tugging at what made her human. Hey, she said softly, what is your name? Lucas, he croaked, the word barely audible over the renewed howl of the wind. Thank you for saving me. His eyes were glassy, pain and disbelief swimming in their depths. Sarah smiled back, feeling a connection unlike anything she'd ever experienced. A warmth seeped into her bones, but it was quickly chased away by the chill of reality. Suddenly, the lights flickered more violently, and the thunder outside rattled the diner. The back door shook with a force that made both Sarah and Jake jump. The other patrons exchanged worried glances, rising anxiety rippling through the gathered crowd. You all need to stay inside. An older woman shouted, clutching her handbag. It's too dangerous out there. But Sarah's instincts screamed at her to check. What was happening? Did the storm have more in store for them? Jake, could you? She started, but he shook his head. I'm not leaving you with him, he said firmly, although she could see worry lacing through his resolve. Please, she insisted, darting her gaze back at Lucas. We need to be sure. We have to know the storm is not hiding something worse. He drew a breath, conflicted between her fears and his protective instincts. Just then, the door swung open partially, loud enough to send a chill through the diner, revealing an alleyway filled with swirling debris. One patron raised a hand hesitantly. What if we secure the back door? We should keep it closed at all costs. Fine, Jake relented finally, giving Sarah one last searching look. He started toward the door with quick, determined steps, pushing through the crowd. Before she could voice her anxieties for him, Lucas grabbed her arm weakly. You need to listen, he said urgently. There is something in the storm. What? She pressed, dread blooming in her chest. He looked around, as if weighing who might hear his words. I'm not just some random guy caught outside. He faltered, breathing heavily again. You probably don't understand. Just then, a resounding crash echoed from somewhere deep in the storm, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Chairs toppled in the diner, and the lights dimmed again. The nervous buzz among the patrons escalated to a frantic crescendo, panic flooding the air. Sarah caught sight of the door Jake had just secured, now splintering at the hinges. Something's coming, she shouted, heart racing. Lucas fixed his eyes on her, all breathless urgency. Listen to me. There is a reason I was out there, and it has everything to do with why this storm is so fierce. His revelation hung heavy between them, and Sarah felt the storm raging inside her too. What truth was this stranger about to reveal? Was it too late to understand, or perhaps too late to escape? As the door trembled under violent pressure, she knew something would break. Something had to give. The door shuddered violently, and Sarah felt a sense of urgency wash over her. As patrons gasped and backed away from the splintering wood, she knelt close to Lucas, searching his eyes for clarity. What do you mean? She urged, her voice barely breaking through the chaos. What's in the storm? Before he could respond, the door burst open, and the wind howled like a banshee. The dark sky seemed to lean in, swallowing the light and filling the diner with an unnatural chill. Thick branches, ripped from nearby trees, slid across the floor like jagged shards of a nightmare. "Close it! Close it!" shouted a man, pushing toward the door, but the wind yanked it back with even more force. Jake fought against the storm, slipping through the terrified crowd to wrestle the door shut again. His muscles strained, and Sarah's heart raced for him as he struggled against the storm's wrath. "Get behind me," Sarah yelled, grabbing hold of Lucas's shoulders, willing him to lean against her for support. "You're safe now, don't worry." Lucas shivered, his gaze darting to the door, then back to her. "This storm isn't normal. It's a warning," he gasped, his breath coming in quick bursts. "You need to trust me." Suddenly, another crash tore through the atmosphere, this time accompanied by a flash of light. The lights flickered more violently, casting eerie shadows across the diner. "It's happening," Lucas shouted, pain twisting his features. "You need to listen. There are forces at work, and they're coming for you." The panic escalated, and an elderly man shouted, "What does he mean? What forces?" But Sarah's mind swirled with fear and confusion. Could a storm really carry a message? She kept Lucas close, fighting against the tightening grip of fear wrapping around her heart. "Stay calm," she urged the others. "We need to stay together." Jake finally managed to slam the door shut, latching it with a heavy bar. He looked breathless, his face flushed with exertion. "What did he say, Sarah?" he asked, searching her eyes. "Something about a warning force is coming," she stammered. At that moment, Lucas leaned closer, whispering urgently, "Not just any forces. They're drawn to people like me, and maybe you too." "What do you mean like me?" Sarah felt exposed, vulnerable, as if he could see the shadows of her past. But he didn't have a chance to answer. The lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness before they returned, now glowing ominously as thunder roared in response. Lucas's face was contorted with anguish, and he gripped her arm tighter. "Anyone who has been touched by the storm will be seen. You need to hide. Please." "Hide? From what?" she asked, fear cutting through her resolve. The air in the diner thickened with uncertainty. Patrons whispered conspiratorially, glancing nervously out the windows, as if shadows lurked just beyond the glass. An unsettling silence fell somewhere deep within the storm. Then a low growl rumbled toward them. Something alive was out there, and it could feel their presence. Jake turned to the group. "No one leaves the diner. We hold our ground until the storm passes." Lucas leaned forward, desperation in his voice. "Jake, you don't understand. The storm won't pass. Not until it has what it wants." "What does it want?" Jake demanded, eyes flashing with protective anger. But Lucas's gaze remained on Sarah, his expression pleading. "You need to trust me, or we won't make it through tonight." As thunder cracked loudly overhead, shaking the very foundation of the diner, Sarah felt the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She had to know. "Lucas," she breathed, "what do we need to do?" He took a deep breath, holding her gaze with an intensity that made her heart race. "You have to embrace what you are and face it before it's too late." A loud thud echoed outside, sending chills up her spine. What were they truly up against? What did faith and survival mean in the heart of the storm? Trepidation clawed at her as she realized that whatever lay ahead could change everything she thought she knew about herself. And amidst the chaos, a new dread enveloped her. Was she ready to confront the darkness brewing within, or would it swallow her whole? The diner was swathed in a suffocating anxiety, the storm's howls drowning out any semblance of calm. Sarah's heart raced as she processed Lucas's words, a whirlwind of fear and confusion swirling within her. "Embrace what you are." The phrase echoed in her mind. What did that even mean? She had always been just another face in a crowd, someone who blended in, someone who avoided drawing attention. The thought of being anything special, or even worse, a target, sent a shiver down her spine. Across the room, patrons exchanged nervous glances, whispers thick with uncertainty. The elderly man continued to stare wide-eyed into the darkness outside, his knuckles white against the counter. The smell of coffee and grease felt strangely stale now, overshadowed by the fear tightening its grip in the air. Jake stood near the door, his breaths coming in ragged bursts. "We can't keep waiting around," he glared at Lucas. "What can we do?" We can't fight the storm, Lucas said firmly, his grip on Sarah's arm unyielding. But we can prepare for what comes after. A crashing sound intensified outside, like a monster trying to break free. Sarah's pulse quickened, her mind racing. What are we preparing for? The storm isn't just wind and rain, Lucas whispered conspiratorially. It's alive. It feeds off our fears, our hidden truths. As if on cue, the lights flickered again, dimming to almost nothing before blazing back to life, casting ghostly faces in pale shadows. The diner felt like it was teetering on the edge of madness, the very walls trembling under nature's fury. Sarah pulled Lucas closer. What truth? He sighed, his breath shaky. There are things about you, about me, that we can't ignore. We have to confront them or risk getting lost in this storm. I don't know what you mean. Her voice wavered, the ground beneath her shifting. Do you feel that connection? The pull. He pressed, eyes locking onto hers. You and I were linked to something greater than this moment. It frightens us, but it can be our strength. Instantly, Sarah recalled the sense of déjà vu every time she stepped into the diner, the familiarity that gnawed at her gut. What was she missing? A sudden crash jolted them all. A tree branch smashed against the window, sending glass shards flying. Shrieks erupted as people scrambled back. Everyone, stay down. Jake shouted. Protect yourselves. People dove for cover, chairs toppled, but Sarah couldn't move. Her eyes remained on the chaos, then back to Lucas, whose face twisted in fear and determination. They were caught in a tidal wave, and somehow, they had the power to either drown or find shore. Embrace what? She shouted over the din. What am I supposed to embrace? The growl outside intensified, echoing like the cries of creatures lurking just beyond sight, ready to slip through the door at any moment. In that moment, her fear crystallized into something sharper, an awareness that pushed her to the brink of revelation. Your past, Lucas shouted, urgency flaring in his voice. Your memories. Your strength. The air felt electric, as if she were standing on the brink of a cliff. Deep inside, she knew there was more to her than a timid girl tucked away in a small-town diner. This storm was forcing her to face it all, whether she wanted to or not. But did she have the courage to look back? To unearth the darkness and reveal more than just shadows? Another thunderstorm growled, louder and more alive. Just then, the lights flickered fiercely again, and in that instant amidst the chaos, she felt the unmistakable stirrings of her own power beginning to awaken. The storm held answers, and maybe her own heart was the key. And with that surge, a single question loomed. Were they ready to unlock the truth hidden within, or would the storm erase it all? The wind howled, battering the diner like a beast desperate to get in. It was as if the storm itself was alive, breathing fury and demanding attention. Sarah felt a weight in her chest as she locked eyes with Lucas. His urgency was palpable. Your past, Sarah, he repeated, his voice barely breaking through the chaos. You need to remember. Remember what? She yelled, frustration coating her words. You keep talking in riddles. I don't even know who I am. Jake turned, face pale, angles sharp under the flickering lights. Whatever's out there, it knows something about us. It's watching. We need to fight it, stand together. The fear in his voice felt like a thread pulling at her. She realized that the storm wasn't her only enemy. Within her, buried under layers of doubt and uncertainty, there were memories and emotions she had buried deep, so deep, she had nearly forgotten they existed. But they pressed against her mind now, demanding to surface. Do you ever feel like you're meant for something more? Lucas asked, his tone shifting, almost soothing. Like there's power in your blood? Sarah shook her head, feeling lost and exposed. I don't understand what you want from me. What am I supposed to do? The old man at the counter mumbled to himself, eyes darting between the shattering windows and the flickering lights. His fear mirrored her own, a collective anxiety rippling through the diner. Each gust outside felt like a reminder that they were all on borrowed time. Just listen, Lucas implored her. Feel it. The pull, it's awakening something, I know it. Lightning tore across the sky, illuminating the diner for a brief, electric moment. Shadows danced on the walls, grotesque shapes morphing in the flashes. It was as if the storm itself was reaching for them. Sarah took a shaky breath. What if embracing my past means embracing pain? What if I don't like what I find? Lucas stepped closer, his intensity threatening to consume her. But what if it means you find out who you truly are? What if that pain is also your freedom? His words rang true, hitting her hard. In that moment, Sarah felt riddled with contradiction, fear, and courage both swelling in her chest. The storm raged, but beneath the surface, a trembling warmth ignited, as if something deep within her was beginning to awaken. Something needs to change, Jake said, stepping back to give space for her decision. It's not just about surviving the storm anymore. It's about understanding it. As she stood at the center of rising chaos, Sarah felt the connections pull tighter, memories flashing like flickers of light through a dark tunnel. Her grandmother's stories about storms that raged not just outside but within. Embrace what I am, she whispered, realization dawning. Embrace my past. The winds howled louder, shaking the diner once again, and Sarah felt her feet shift. She had to confront this, whatever it was, good or bad. The memories, fears, hidden truths, it all waited just outside the door, not just in the storm but within her. Just then, another crash echoed through the air, a sound so close that it made her skin crawl. But it didn't feel like fear anymore. No, it was anticipation, a strange blend of dread and excitement. And with that feeling swirling inside, one question emerged, fierce and unyielding. Was she truly ready to face what lurked behind the storm, or would she be left forever in shadow? As the tide of the storm swelled around them, she clutched Lucas's hand tighter, ready to uncover what waited amid the chaos. The storm raged on, turning night into a cacophony of howling winds and pounding rain. A palpable tension filled the diner, a collective breath held as Sarah faced the reality of her own life. It was messy and complicated, intertwined with fears of uncertainty and past shadows. With one deep breath, she stepped forward, letting the truth wash over her like the rain outside. I'm ready, she spoke with a newfound calm. I'm ready to embrace it all. Her heart thundered in her chest, but it was no longer fear that fueled it. It was courage, ignited by Lucas's pressing urgency. The wind howled louder as if in protest, but she met its challenge head-on. The storm demanded they confront their hidden truths, and she was no longer afraid of what lay beneath the surface. It was time to shine a light in the dark corners of her heart. Listen, everyone. Sarah's voice rose against the raging storm. We're not just fighting a storm out there. We're fighting against the doubts inside us. Help me face this. Jake looked at her, surprise lining his features, but then pride illuminated his eyes. Sarah, he breathed, the tension easing from his shoulders. Lucas, stay close, she instructed, feeling an electric charge between them, igniting the energies circulating through the diner. She faced the crowd, unyielding. We need to remember who we are. No more hiding. No more turning away. With resolve, she reached for the shared stories of the townsfolk, the ones that had built their histories and shaped their identities. Everyone has a story: laughter, pain, triumph, fear. Let us share, let us connect. Remind ourselves of what binds us together. The aging bartender nodded, wiping his brow. Go on, Sarah. We're here. His words ignited a flicker of courage in others. One by one, stories began to spill forth. Old Mrs. Thompson raised her hand. I remember a storm. Long ago we banded together, pulled through. Each tale of hardship, of love and chaos, fortified their spirits. With every shared memory, the chaos outside lightened, merging with the unity they forged. Sarah felt a warmth wrap around her, a protective cocoon against the fury of the storm. Lucas's grip tightened on her arm, and she glanced over at him, seeing the shift in his expression, an approving smile breaking through the tension. Even nature has its moments of beauty, Lucas murmured, his voice calming. The storm reveals our strength. The winds softened, as if they too were listening, the storm morphing from an enemy to a part of the symbiosis they were creating together. Each person leaning into this sanctuary was a thread woven into a tapestry of resilience. Then it happened. A loud crackle echoed, followed by the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. Sarah snapped her gaze to the window, heart racing. It's coming. Her voice rang out, but this time it held no panic. It was a call to bravery. Jake stepped forward, defying the storm once more. We stand together. Whatever lurks out there, he gestured toward the door. It cannot break the bond we've formed here. And with those words, Something shifted in the air. It was as if their collective hope solidified into a barrier against whatever threat might come forth. Lucas faced Sarah, eyes shimmering with an unspoken understanding. You're the heart of this, Sarah. Your bravery has awakened something strong in all of us. Just as another gust howled outside, battering against their safe haven, strength surged through Sarah. She held her head high, feeling the threads of her past weaving into her present. We won't back down. We will face the storm together. The darkness outside coiled, the air thick with anticipation. And in that moment, Sarah realized this wasn't just about the storm outside. It was also a collision of who she was, who she wanted to be, and all the truths she had once buried. Bring it on, she shouted, defiance ringing in her tone as she stepped up, prepared to embrace whatever truth awaited beyond the doors of the diner. With the wind raging and the crowd behind her, she felt truly alive, her soul ignited by unyielding spirit. This was her moment, her storm, her fight. In one collective breath, they stood together, facing the chaos that loomed outside, hearts pounding but united. The storm might rage, but it would not defeat them. From this moment on, they were the architects of their own futures, wielding strength and unity against nature's fury. And even as the wind howled and the thunder crashed, the real transformation began. They were no longer just individuals facing fear. They were a community, locked in a dance with the storm, ready to embrace whatever came next. The storm outside continued its furious dance, but in that diner on a stormy night in Dusty Creek, hope flickered bright, and Sarah discovered the power she had always held within herself. Click now to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Your support means everything.